Woodlawn United Methodist Church seeks to shape people to be the heart, hands, and feet of Jesus, that we might make God's love real in the world.
This church has always been very, very strong in mission, and so everything that we do builds into that.
You'll find Woodlawn active and involved in our community nearly everywhere you look. The Food Pantry, Derby's Barbecue Festival, Youth for Christ Juvenile Justice Ministry, health fairs, Circles Out of Poverty, Operation Holiday, the thrift store, and more. Campaign co-director Bill Smith finds that this is one of the most appealing things about Woodlawn.
Woodlawn was one of the first churches in the Derby area that really opened themselves up to the community. We had all sorts of different programs going, and where other churches were working with their own groups, we were an open door to the entire community. And I would just like to think that we could continue to do that.
Community services that help people in need, such as Derby Community Family Services and Meals on Wheels, got their start at Woodlawn. And our own Jack and Jill Preschool has been helping young children learn, grow, and prepare for kindergarten for over 50 years. Woodlawn's witness and outward focus grows out of the spiritual formation that happens in this congregation. It's what shapes people to live as the heart, hands, and feet of Jesus. Worship is central to who we are as God's children and as ambassadors of Christ. Each month, 650 to 700 persons worship in our 3 weekly worship services. Knowing that different types of atmosphere and music appeal to different people, Woodlawn seeks to be a church for every generation.
But I had baptized both my kids in the church we got married in Ohio, and all of a sudden, my son is 10 years old. and I really wasn't living up to my baptismal vows. And I was looking for a place where we could do that, where he could go to catechism or go to confirmation class or to start, investing in his. and that's why I love this place.
We offer exciting programs for children each week and special times in the summer. There's classes, camping, and other programs for youth and studies for adults, all in an effort to help shape people to be the heart, hands, and feet of Jesus. There's fellowship, too, building the sort of friendships that can last over the years.
Being able to grow with our friends, as their children moved out of the house, as our parents have gotten older and some have passed away. We're doing life together. We've got a lot of different names for ourselves just because we can't make up our mind. But it's just having that relationship, that other thing. I almost moved away. I was, when Boeing folded up, I was working for a different part. I almost moved to St. Louis. We Jolene and I went and looked at St. Louis, and found a neighborhood. But I don't know anybody in that school. I don't know anybody. What church would be fine? What doctor would be fine? I moved a lot, as a Air Force officer. Yeah. The first 10 years or 12 years we were married, we had 10 different addresses. It was just one of those things. When we got to Wichita and to Derby, we didn't think we'd be here more than 3 years. Things changed, and that's about 20 years later now.
It's clear. The community knows Woodlawn is here for them. In 2017, Woodlawn was awarded the prestigious Mayor's Award of Excellence for its decades of service to local community, making God's love real. But our outreach and mission doesn't begin and end in Derby. It reaches outward, funding ministries in Wichita, through the Great Plains Conference of Kansas and Nebraska, and even to the farthest reaches of the world, such as Angel House Orphanage and Secondary School in Tanzania. How did Woodlawn come to be such a mission-minded, outwardly focused group of Christians? In short, it's because Woodlawn folks have always been willing to give, sacrifice, and be the church to demonstrate God's love in the world, to make it real.
Oh, the church has been our life as long as I can remember. Mom and Dad before I was even born, were fundraising to raise money to build a church. And then we took part in, it was a major part of our life. That was what we did, was church.
And I think back about what they sacrificed when they started this church. It took a lot of commitment on their part, whether it be monetarily or whether it be time. These were people with mostly one-income homes, and they had lots of kids, so their commitment was even a bigger thing for them to make.
In 1955, this congregation began when J. Carl Jones was appointed to a non-existent congregation in Derby. A parsonage was built, and Jones began visiting house to house to start what is today Woodlawn United Methodist Church. The first modest church home was built in 1956. Though gutted by fire, it was rebuilt and still stands today as the Jack and Jill Preschool Center. In its first 10 years, the church undertook 4 capital building projects, including the building of the present sanctuary in 1963, and what is now the Adult Education Wing in 1965.
Well, I remember being in Woodlawn Players, which put on big musicals. And one time we had a dinner, and the kitchen just wasn't big enough to wash dishes. And so we had a garden hose coming into what was the old parlor, and we were washing dishes with a garden hose in there, thinking, wouldn't it be great to have a nice kitchen where you could handle that? And just meeting the needs of Woodlawn at the time, as we were growing, as we were expanding programming, wouldn't it be nice to have the facilities to meet that need?
An extensive renovation in the 1980s added a fellowship hall, new kitchen, and office complex. The 1990s brought the addition of a new children's education center and choir room.
And just meeting the needs of Woodlawn at the time, as we were growing, as we were expanding programming, wouldn't it be nice to have the facilities to meet that need? I remember needing a choir room where we could store our music and where we could hang our robes and all be in the same room. And we got that. And every building program has given us that kind of facility to further our mission.
2014 brought extensive renovations of the sanctuary and the fellowship hall, as well as the building of a new addition, the new Woodlawn Youth Center.
But this gave them the opportunity of having their very own space. We were using adult ed spaces, and then we'd have to get out so that a youth Sunday school class could come in right on top of us. And so we needed spaces that the youth could be on their own by themselves and wouldn't have to wait in the hall for adults to get through, so they could have their own space.
Through 6 of its 7 building projects, Woodlawn used short-term financing to fund construction and paid off loans quickly. They had to. Another new need and building project always seemed right around the corner. In 2016, the Walk by Faith additions and renovations were financed over 20 years, which kept payments under $10,000 a month, but was considerably longer than previous loans.
Right, because we only had enough money to pay pledged for 3 years, and so that was $300,000. Well, you do it again in another 3 years, and you got the same problem again, and so forth and so on. So my concern was, how do we, when we go back to the congregation for the 3rd or 4th time for money, then what we built is 15 years old, and we still haven't got it paid for, and now we're remodeling it.
Today, the congregation is responsible for $1.3 million of debt, structured to be repaid over a remaining 17 years. Sometimes a debt this big for this long can seem like a looming mountain, overshadowing almost everything else.
We're going to have to do something. We're going to be on a variable interest rate that's going to change, and if we don't kind of start shaving on this now, now's the time to do it, not later.
You know, and we're missing not doing other things because we're paying for a building.
It hampers what you do as a church, because that becomes the priority for all your monies to pay off debt, and you lose enthusiasm for it. It becomes a burden. It hampers your fundraising. It hampers people get tired of it. So to get rid of it opens up all those financial opportunities for us to invest in our youth, to invest in our kids, to invest in our classes and things that we offer, to invest in our mission.
The reason why I'm supporting it is just, it is my home, and it's one of the things we need to take care of. And it's a part of doing business. It's a part of the reality of what we have to do. So, you know, if I can help out with that, all right, I'll be glad to.
Jesus told his disciples that if they just had faith even the size of a mustard seed, that they could say to a mountain, "Move," and it would move. Do we have the faith necessary to move our mountain of debt out of our way? Even the faith of a mustard seed?
It's there. It's there. That mountain is there. It's got to be moved.
What would we do? What could Woodlawn do once this debt is repaid? If we didn't have a $9,600 payment to make each month?
You know, what I like to see in the church is we do a lot in the local community. I like that a lot, and I like that kind of giving. So there's programs that we could give more to, and whether it's feeding people or paying their light bill or helping them with those kind of things, I just see us, and then the thing of it is, we've kind of hamstrung ourselves, so we haven't got anybody thinking about new projects.
Would we create new ministries, the way Woodlawn always has, to encourage new families and their children and youth? Would we find a new initiative that would make a great impact on our community and the needs of our neighbors? What would we do? What could we do if we were free from our debt? The Move a Mountain campaign is critical. Every dollar we can apply to the principal loan balance over and above our payment schedule will result in great interest savings. It will require sacrifice, the way our ancestors sacrificed to build what we have inherited.
Mom just asked Dad one night, "Can we do this?" And Dad pulled out the box that had all the information at home on bills and funds, and he looked at a couple things and said, "Yes, we could do that."
Yeah, I think we sacrifice. I think we give that a lot of thought, and we have talked about it. And there are things that we will and intend to give up in order to accomplish this thing. And we've done that on all of these campaigns. It's a hard thing to do. People don't want to sacrifice, and you think about, wow, we're giving to the general fund and to what on a normal basis, but now over and above, how are we going to do that? Well, we'll do it. We've done it for years. This church has done it for years. People that are no longer here stepped up in their faith years ago to get us where we are today.
The Move a Mountain campaign is our opportunity to make a difference.
It gives me the opportunity to work with people that I like to work with. It also gives me the opportunity to make a statement about where my priorities lie. It makes an opportunity for me to put my money where my mouth is.
What can happen if we all do our part? Can such a looming mountain really be moved? Consider this chart. If our Move a Mountain campaign is successful, we could move up our payoff date from 2036 to 2026. How much would that help? Moving up our payoff date would also cut our total interest paid in half. Instead of the $702,000 of interest we expected to pay, we will have paid only $350,000 in interest by the payoff date. What could Woodlawn do? What would we do with an additional $350,000 in our pockets to invest in ministry, in mission, in doing what the gospel of Christ instructs us to do as the heart, hands, and feet of Jesus in the world? With faith the size of a mustard seed, we will say to this mountain, "Move!" And as we all do our part, not equal in size of gift, but equal in the level of our sacrifice, this mountain will indeed move. For we are part of a long line of saints, preparing the way for those who come after us.
I think about Bill Wagner, particularly. Bill was a Sunday school teacher of mine when I was in high school. And Bill and Irma had a ton of kids. And I served on committees with Bill when I got to be a young adult. And I sang at his funeral. It's a legacy.
This place has been my life for, I don't know how old I am, 60 some years.